Once these people die, people just put them in a zip bag and they just throw them away. There's nothing you can do with them.
Moi-même qui ça demandé pour tout haïtien qui fait choléra pour les Nations Unies dédommager individuellement.
What I'm asking is for all of the Haitians who are victims of cholera for the UN to compensate them individually.
L'aime dit individuellement, c'est pas pour l'État ça y a bon moyen. C'est que pour l'État pour l'album Tizama pour Haïti moyen.
When I say individually, I don't mean for them to give it to the government and then for the government to then give me what it wants to give me.
Moi demande que sa Nations Unies a bail là, faut qu'il capable bon maintenant là même moi même pour me capable occuper comme ensemble avec lui pour mes deux petits moi demain.
I want them to give it to me in my hands so that I can take care of myself and my children in the future.
The Inner City Press, on behalf of the Free UN Coalition for Access, thanks for the briefing. Glad to have it. Stakeouts would also be useful when you speak to the Council. But I wanted to ask you about cholera in Haiti. As you may know, while you were away, your deputy gave the speech, and many people in Haiti interpreted it as a pulling back from the idea of compensating victims of the cholera that was brought. Maybe they misunderstand it, but they put out a press release. There's a protest planned there on Thursday during the Council's visit. So I wanted to ask you, I know that the member states haven't come forward with what they might have, but are you going to put more time in? Do you think that the idea of actually compensating the people whose family members were killed by cholera is still alive? And also, I'd understood that there was going to be an announcement about the Congo-Brazzaville contingent being repatriated from Central African Republic. Is it going to happen? And if so, what's the standard? Because the Burundians were found to have 25 soldiers accused by OIOS of sexual abuse. Is there a number, or what determines when people are repatriated? Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
First of all, in relation to Haiti, the policy that was announced by my predecessor had two dimensions. One is fighting cholera, and the other is the possibility to support, namely to support communities impacted. It was devised not as individual support, but community support for the communities impacted. As you mentioned, there has been little voluntary funding for these projects. So we have presented a proposal for the amounts that were not spent in the previous mission in Haiti and that should be given back to countries, for countries to be ready to accept not to receive those amounts back in order to be able to fund the cholera program. And at the same time, we have just appointed Ms. Josette Chiran as my special envoy for Haiti, centered, of course, in the fundraising for cholera. She was, as you know, the World Food Program leader a few years ago. She is now president of the Asian Society, and she accepted, with a salary of $1 per year, she accepted to be fully engaged in fundraising for a program that indeed until now has received very little support, but that is very important from the point of view of the people and from the point of view of the credibility of the UN.
In Haiti, as the Security Council made its trip, various people approached the press that was part of the trip and said very clearly that they interpreted what Amina Mohammed and Mr. Guterres had said as a retrenchment, as a stepping back from the idea of possible individual reparations, that was in the November report by then Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. And they said one gentleman, 57 years old, who has had cholera and his spouse died, said, community projects are useless to me, do nothing for me. And I guess I just wanted to understand more clearly. I was left, Farhan ended up saying that there's still some consideration of individual. That's not really the way that I read the thing. What is the current thinking of the Secretary General on attempting to make at least some type of reparatory payment to people whose relatives got cholera and died and have to educate their children?
First of all, our hearts go out to all the people who suffered from the cholera epidemic, either personally or through the loss of loved ones. I think the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General were very clear in outlining the way forward. The focus will be initially on a community-based project, and we're taking things one step at a time. But I can't really go any further than what the Secretary General himself said.
But he seemed to say that there was never, I mean, maybe I misunderstood it, but I've looked at the transcript, that there was not individual was not being considered. And I guess I'm
As
trying to say to you that
things are progressing. We're taking things one step at a time.
In Haiti, the people are not working.
Moun sa yo pa ka travay encore après choléra fini sou yo.
These people cannot work again after cholera has destroyed them.
Fè yon place publique pour yo, ça la vitil yo. Rien du tout.
Giving them a public plaza is not going to serve any use.
Attends. Fè yon place publique, pas rien du tout.
Yes.
Fè yon l'hôpital.
To do a
Et puis, il y a
hospital.
l'hôpital déjà.
The country already has hospitals.
Fè yon l'école. Est-ce que ça ka...
Build a school. Is that going to
Is
that going to
Du
serve
tout.
them?
Ça yo te gen choléra fini. Économiquement.
What they had when they had cholera is all gone. Economy, they don't have any finance.
We're in the UN briefing room, where the spokesman jocularly refuses to answer basic questions about prosecution of bribery, redeployment of rapists, silence on protests. The UN must be repaired. And this individual speaking here is the one that threw the press that asked the questions that you've just seen out of the briefing room and out of the UN, putting an Egyptian state media, circus-like, that's never asked a question, in the place, so that inner city press requires minders. To cover the General Assembly right now can't do it without a minder. It must change, and we will pursue it.